and welcome to this week's episode of Geek-Minded Fools. My name's Graham.
And I'm Scott.
As you can probably tell, we're out and about today.
Roving reporters.
We are indeed.
Here for the remastered premiere of Fern Gully 2.
We are at the IMAX, the BFI IMAX up. Is it Odin now? I can't remember.
No, it's still the BFI IMAX, I believe.
IMAX. There you go.
It is early, so I can understand why you'd make that mistake.
My brains are scrambled. Up in London. And why we're here, Scott?
We are here for the Avengers Age of Ultron, sir.
Very exciting.
Very, very exciting.
We've seen the trailers.
Oh, we've worn the t-shirts. I've worn the pants.
Outside your trousers
for weeks, literally weeks,
unchanged. What are you thinking?
I have quite trepidation.
Oh, okay.
But excited.
Yeah.
I want to do a wee. My tummy's going. I don't know why. I mean, that could be the film. That could be my just poor diet. But,
yes.
But yeah,
All
very excited. Very, very excited.
Yeah.
So I think this is our first roving report, really, isn't it?
I'm kind of coming in with the expectation that I'm not going to love it as much as I did the first film, because the first film was so good. And I think it's going to do very well to live up to that.
Yeah.
But just can't wait. It's going to be awesome. New characters.
Oh, hell yeah.
Hulkbuster, Iron Man.
Kick-Ass is in it as well, I've heard. You know, I'm hoping he's still in the green suit. I think this is going to be good stuff, and one of the Olsen twins as well. So you know, we're in for a good day, I think, so far.
It's the Olsen triplet, I think, this one, isn't it?
Right. Okay. So the forgotten one, the forgotten Olsen,
the one that came out 2 years after the other two.
The difficult third Olsen.
Brilliant. Anyway, so we're on our way in. Very excited.
Indeed. You know, I've got to rush off now anyway because I've got to steal from the pick and mix.
This is true. And then we should be recording a proper review at the end of this.
So
on Normal Abode.
Keep your ears open.
Absolutely. See you later, guys.
Bye.
Okay, we are back from the cinema.
We are.
We were planning to record afterwards, but didn't due to the fact I think we were both speechless.
Yeah, a little bit. But I've brought you back to my palatial love pad for us to record this very special episode.
Yes.
Of Geek-Minded Fools.
So, Avengers: Age of Ultron.
Well, I think my smile said everything, didn't it?
Didn't
when
it just?
When I came out the door, my face hurts from smiling so much. That was a rip snorting thrill ride. I really thoroughly enjoyed every second of it. And just for you guys listening, Graham and I pretty much travelled home in silence because Graham doesn't like me. No, we travelled home pretty much in silence because
that was one of the reasons.
Yeah, because I think we were both speechless, but Graham's very much playing his cards close to his chest as to whether or not.
Not just that, but we always find that when we start talking about things, we go into such huge depth that we end up saying stuff that we should really say for the podcast. For example, we were talking about, because we saw the Jurassic World trailer, we were talking about Chris Pratt, and that got us on to him possibly being the next Indy, and then, of course, my hatred of all these reboots that are coming up, and we just went into great detail, and at one point you said, we need to stop because we can do this in a future podcast, and that's the problem with us. We talk so much about things that...
We are constantly having to pull out.
Hey.
But yeah, you got to tell me, did you like it?
It was an incredible film,
wasn't it?
It was an incredible film.
It was glorious, wasn't it?
I said beforehand that I'd prepared myself not to like it as much as the first film.
Yeah.
But what was not to love about that film? And of course, the great thing about being a sequel is it was able to hit the ground running.
And it very much did that.
Absolutely.
Didn't it?
You didn't have to build up with origins. You didn't have to deal with people falling out and then coming together as a team at the end. They hit the ground running, and boy, did they hit the ground running.
Yes, the opening scenes. Obviously, we're going to review this as best we can and try not to spoil it too much for those of you who've not yet seen the film. But
we will not reveal the major plot points along the way.
But what an opening scene! We're literally thrown straight into a pitch battle with Hydra, which you will have seen little bits and bobs of in the trailer. I just stunned by how well it's all put together.
They do this wonderful thing, and they did it in the first Avengers film when they were all stood in a circle and the camera panned round them. They did that great bit where they all sort of came across the screen
from the left-hand side of the screen.
Sort of Hawkeye and Black Widow were coming out of the Jeep and Hulk came flying across, and it suddenly slowed. You just got the 6 Avengers, one after the other, just sort of going from left to right towards the enemy. And I love it when they do that. And there was a bit of that later on in the film as well, when they're in the church.
It was a great way to show that they've been, obviously, since the first film, after the Battle of New York, they've obviously been battling other foes, and it just shows how cohesive the team is.
They are fine-tuned. They are
a
cohesive fighting unit, as you say.
You've got Cap, throwing out the plays. Look at me using an American football term there. Someone who, I only watch the league. That's as far as I go with American football. But yeah, Cap very much throwing out the plays, and just lovely to see them just thrown in at the deep end straight away in the opening minutes. And
it hit the ground running.
I don't know whether I want to kind of spoil this a little bit, but the opening line was brilliant. Can you remember what the opening line was?
Shit.
Yeah, gotta love that.
And the second line?
Language.
Which is a theme that runs throughout it, the fact that Cap is still this 40s prude who doesn't approve of bad language.
Very much the Boy Scout still, very much the all-American boy.
Yeah, but realises it and he's trying to get past it, but occasionally, as he says, it slips out. So.
Yeah. We also get our first look, again, not to be too spoilerific, but we also get our first look at Black Widow taming the Hulk.
Yes.
Which I thought worked brilliantly.
Very well done.
It's
the lullaby, as they call it.
The lullaby, yes. What's the little line she uses at the beginning? Something like the sun's getting low.
Yeah, that's right, the sun's getting low.
Really beautifully realised.
Yeah.
Just Hulk laying the back of his hand on her hand, and that being powerful enough to bring him down from his gamma radiated anger.
But then before that, we'd obviously seen the proper introduction of the 2 new enhanced, as they're referred to, Quicksilver and the Scarlet Witch, who obviously we saw at the end of Winter Soldier.
Yep, indeed.
And therefore we got to see them properly.
And I must admit, those 2 characters were my biggest worry of the film, because I couldn't work out how you were going to fit those characters into the universe in a clever enough manner to make them interesting.
In a believable way, yes. Credible.
But credible is the word I was looking for, very much so. But yeah, they managed to pull that off pretty damn well.
What I loved about this film was they pretty much crowbarred everyone in, didn't they? Yeah. This was a great thing. Of course, you saw Falcon, you had War Machine, so therefore everybody was kind of pulled in at various points. And
War Machine pretty stand out, I think, for me as well. In the brief period that he's in it, he really is in it, isn't he?
He was good.
He's very good. I mean,
Don Cheadle does have some very, very funny lines. I mean, one thing that I loved about it was they maintained that feeling from the first film, which is high octane action, but very, very funny as well. I mean, there's some great bits where there's some real belly laughs, and you got that across the audience. And why I like the IMAX rather than going to some piss pot local audience, absolutely, is that you do get a better class of punter. I think
they're there because they love film,
precisely,
and they want to see it in the best way possible.
And the fact that every film gets introduced beforehand by the person on the mic in the spotlight. And also, with the greatest respect, people are paying 20 quid a ticket, and therefore they aren't going to be your yobs who are going to be on their phone or sort of, making stupid noises. And so what I love was people reacted well, and there was a lot of laughter. There was some applause for some bits as well. It was just very, very well done across the board, the humour.
I did find myself a couple of times going to do a little bit of applause and then kind of backing out, thinking, oh, no one else is applauding. But yeah, I mean, there are umpteen chances to applaud and umpteen chances to gasp and just be amazed by what Whedon's put on the screen.
I mean, even little things, little asides, like one thing I did like was after that first battle, they're in the Quinjet going back to Avengers Tower, and obviously the famous bumper sticker in the States is Jesus is my co-pilot. Indeed, and the one in there said Jarvis is my co-pilot.
It was
which I thought was brilliant.
Do keep your eyes open because it is a blink and you'll miss it moment.
Absolutely.
But I think that was your first snigger, I think, the first out loud snigger. Yes. Which was
but no one else seemed to. It was just me.
It was a real quick moment though. It was a real quick moment. But yeah, as you say, there were a lot of gasps and a lot of I mean, all around the cinema. So
I mean, we should obviously start off by saying the basic premise of the storyline, which is that when they take down Baron von Strucker in the opening scene, they manage to get back the Loki Pokey stick from the first Avengers film. And
is that his technical name? Is that his actual name, the Loki Pokey stick?
I certainly hope so.
Okay. Can you do the Loki Pokey?
And they then bring it back, and what they find out is Tony Stark is looking at what von Strucker was doing with it, and realises that within it he's developed an artificial intelligence. And he shows Banner Jarvis, and then sort of shows a 3D graphical representation, a hologram of this intelligence, which is huge and is effectively an artificial intelligence that's ready to be plugged into something. And obviously what Stark has been planning is to have this sort of automated Earth protection system.
A suit of armour around the world.
As he says, yes, called Ultron. And so they decide that they're going to use this artificial intelligence to power this Ultron, because that's the one thing that's been their stumbling block.
Yeah.
And of course, while they're away having a bit of a party, the system manages to create this, and we see Ultron come to life. But then when Jarvis is trying to communicate with Ultron, we realise that Ultron, rather than being the protector that Stark wants him to be, is actually an aggressor,
a sentient aggressor,
yes,
almost,
and therefore manages to create a body for himself, and that is effectively the storyline of the film. It is him trying to destroy humanity, and the Avengers then having to try and take him down.
They have to assemble once again.
They do indeed.
I thought that was very clever, actually. The as you say, the graphical representation of Jarvis against the Ultron AI.
Yeah.
Really, really easy to understand. Again, not to to keep using the same words, but brilliantly realised.
Yep.
I think possibly the a younger audience, they wouldn't have struggled with that. It was very easy to understand.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I really appreciate that, because sometimes I'm a bit thick. Sometimes it's not that I need things pointed out to me all the time, but it didn't take away from the story, and I believed the technology.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And of course, one thing that is quite a major plot point within the film is there is a budding romance within the team as well.
There is, but not between the two characters who I thought the romance was going to develop between.
Who did you think?
Well, I thought it was going to be Black Widow and Hawkeye.
Oh, okay.
I really thought Clint and Natasha were going to be...
well, they were obviously the two sort of came in together.
Yeah, and they've already got this close-knit relationship. I think at one stage in this particular movie, she does refer to him as my best friend.
Absolutely, yeah.
Which obviously I think is done to pave the way for the actual relationship that's developing between her and Bruce Banner.
Bruce Banner, yes. Mark Ruffalo. You lucky dog.
Yeah, you lucky gamma-radiated fool.
But that is something that's continuously referred to throughout. And of course it's this whole thing where she's clearly a very cut-off character and doesn't easily show emotions, which is something that Cap refers to when he's talking to Banner about it. And therefore I think for her to be experiencing this, sort of, it was an enhanced closeness for her, but of course tempered with his attraction to her, but the fear that he has of getting close to anybody because of his alter ego. Yeah,
and throughout the film as well, we also learn little bits about Natasha Romanoff and her past, and it makes it a little bit more understandable and believable as to why she would want to have someone close to her and someone who she can care for and can care for her. It's for a love story, which normally I can take or leave in any film. In fact, leave more than take, because they just wind me up when they put too much emphasis on love stories. This worked really well. And I think it did enhance the story, and it did give you a sense of peril when one or other of that particular couple was in any sense of dread or any sense of trouble.
Yeah.
And you wanted to see one swoop in to save the other, sort of thing. It was brilliantly done.
Absolutely.
So on the whole, for me, I think it's probably the first time I've seen a love story in a film that I've enjoyed.
You gave a shit about.
I gave a shit about. Yeah, indeed.
One thing that I did enjoy about it was, Scarlet Witch's powers, they were telekinesis, mind manipulation, and there was a very good bit where she went round and tranced up various members of the team. She obviously started off with Tony Stark when he was first claiming the Loki pokey stick back, and she almost shows people's worst fears or people's unrealised desires in terms, I guess, of Cap. But Tony saw the Avengers being killed and him unable to do anything about it, and his guilt with surviving and feeling that it's his fault. But it was interesting. We also got to see Black Widow's background, which was very, very interesting. We got to see, interestingly, Captain America being at sort of a very 40s dance with everybody in uniform, but clearly the fact that he can't separate it from war because the cameras of flashes were sort of joined by explosions of war, and sort of somebody with wine spilt on himself was seen as somebody with a bullet wound and that kind of thing. And of course then you had Peggy Carter saying, should we finally have our dance? And therefore I think it was his feelings, and that probably pushed towards the idea of him not being able to have a normal life, because he is created as this warrior, and I think he's probably more that now in his Avengers persona than he was in his World War II persona.
Yeah, so what I saw from that was Scarlet Witch going around and basically doing a little magic hex, as it were. I think she was showing them things that they regret.
Yeah, absolutely.
And not just their fears, but things that they actually do regret in their lives.
Their unexplored desires, the things they wanted. But
it seemed that what they'd done is, the only one that was slightly different was Stark's, because it was almost like a vision of the future, wasn't it?
And of course Thor's was something that clearly is something that's going to be spun off in the next Thor film, I would imagine.
Indeed, yes. Which gets excellent reference throughout this.
Yeah.
It really, really does. Character-wise, we also introduced a new Quicksilver.
Yes.
Who, as I said at the top of this, these were going to be my stumbling blocks, Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver.
Yeah. Firstly,
I'll say, just going back to Scarlet Witch, I thought she was absolutely brilliant.
Elizabeth Olsen, I thought she was brilliant.
She really pulled it off, didn't she? She really did a great job. Aaron Taylor-Johnson as Quicksilver, very, very good.
Absolutely.
Really enjoyed his performance.
Can't fault it.
A very different performance from the young lad who portrayed him in the X-Men movie.
But needed to be as well.
Yeah,
yes.
Very much so. He came across as more of a tough guy, more of a a bit more no nonsense, a little bit less childlike.
But obviously showing very much the darker side because of their origin.
Yeah.
We are shown something of that, and I think they're both coming from a position of hating Stark, basically, which is explained, and their personal loss because of what they view as his actions.
And obviously, most notably due to licensing reasons, they are, as you mentioned earlier, referred to as the Enhanced and not as mutants.
Yeah. Which,
didn't really notice it, did you?
No.
It doesn't really matter, does it? Doesn't really matter. Alongside those, we also got finally Paul Bettany.
We did
in the flesh,
being able to be seen in an Avengers film,
in the flesh or in the vibranium. Not to give away too much of a plot point. Very good.
Yeah,
very good.
As the Vision, we should point out. Yes.
Yeah. What a cool outfit.
Yes, very good. And what I loved is the fact that when he was initially created, how he sort of had that little funny moment. But then, as he was looking out the window, he created the green outfit for himself, and then he created the cloak for himself, and
and even apologises, I believe, does he not, for his initial kind of.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that. And Paul Bettany's delivery of everything, I think. I mean, a majority of the films I've seen him in, I've really enjoyed it. Yeah. And obviously, we've always known he's played the voice of Jarvis, and again, always enjoyable just to hear his voice. But to see him finally be able to get some screen time is really, really nice. And there is that lovely moment of, why has he got the voice of Jarvis? It's like, well, we want to give Paul Bettany a role.
I mean, there was a couple of great mentions, we should say, is Stan Lee's cameo, which I thought was fantastic. There was a party, obviously, for World War II veterans at Avengers Tower, and Thor was dishing out a drink, and somebody said, "Oh, can we have some?" And he said, "No, this is
not for mortal men.
This was brewed for 1,000 years, and you shouldn't have it." And Stan says, "Come on, we survived Omaha Beach. Give us some." So they give him it, and then you see him being carried away, just saying "Excelsior."
Yeah, a very, very drunk Stan Lee.
But at the end of that scene, after the party, there was a fantastic scene regarding Thor's hammer.
Yes.
And the fact that anyone who is not worthy cannot lift Thor's hammer. And of course, in their sort of semi-drunken state, the rest of the team decide to try and lift Thor's hammer. And there's some great humour in that.
There genuinely is. I mean, it's interesting to me that Whedon can not only put together great fantasy action, but very, very funny.
Absolutely.
Very, very funny scenes as well, like that. I mean, and genuinely funny. Not just, I'm laughing because I like the characters. Any characters could have pulled that off, and it still would have been funny because it was written so well. And there's that brilliant look that Thor gives as Cap is trying to attempt to lift it, and I think he almost kind of budges it, doesn't he?
That's right. Well, of course, because in the comics, the only other person who's ever lifted Thor's hammer is Captain America. He's actually
go.
done it in the comics. So therefore, when he goes to lift it and he's straining, it's just about a centimetre of movement you see, and Thor sort of, oh, hang on, and then sort of laughs it off afterwards as if to say, oh, well, that didn't happen.
Although throughout the course of the film, that does change. So I'm definitely not spoiling that, because that's an amazing moment.
But because that, of course, is all teed up in order for the great thing later on in the film.
Of course, so do keep your eyes peeled for all of that.
And of course, another great performance we should mention is your friend of mine, Andy Serkis.
Yes, indeed. Not a huge amount of screen time, but when he is on the screen, you really know he's on the screen. Playing the brilliantly named Ulysses Claw. Who, by all accounts, I mean, I know very little about the character, but by all accounts, from what I've read, he is pretty much spot on from his comic book counterpart.
Looks-wise, yeah.
They've
got it spot on.
They've got him very well, and also notable for an excellent South African accent, which next to mine, I think possibly could be award-winning. As you've, as our listeners have heard before in the Chappie episode that we did, obviously most of that I did in Afrikaans because it is my second language.
Okay.
Yeah. Not a great deal of screen time, as we say, but very, very good when he is there.
Absolutely.
He has a great moment with Scarlet Witch, a really enjoyable moment, a really enjoyable little bit of back and forth dialogue-wise. Very, very good. Now, we haven't yet touched upon our villain of the piece, who was voiced, I think,
rather excellently
by James Spader, who, quite frankly, should never have been off the screen, either in voice or in actual physical form ever, because he's a fabulous actor.
Absolutely.
And this just cements that fact that he, even delivering just a vocal track for a film, he is an effective actor, isn't he?
I mean, from the moment that Ultron was born, you literally see a black screen as he's opening his mind and start to sort of travel through the Ethernet. His performance was brilliant, and what I loved about how Ultron was written was that he wasn't quite perfect, and I like the fact that he had a temper on him. Like, for example, there's a scene that we won't ruin, but he inadvertently lops somebody's arm off.
Oh, he does
and
indeed.
He says,
yes.
"Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sure that will get better."
Yeah. Because this character, the character of Ultron, is this sentient AI. He's kind of pushed himself through the internet and pretty much learned everything that we've got to learn, not just important things, silly things and
you
little
actually see
sayings
everything flash up. It's almost the history of the human race sort of flash out, and of course most of it is war. He sees lots of guns and explosions, and that's obviously why he kind of pegs humanity for needing to be,
they're killing themselves,
made extinct.
I believe he does at one stage make reference to the fact that there were billions or hundreds of disasters before the dinosaurs even roamed the earth of some sort.
And there was another great bit where he's talking to Quicksilver and the Scarlet Witch when he's talking... Who
we should probably explain, he has kind of taken under his wing. He's trying to get them on the on Team Bad, as it were.
And he's talking to them and he says, oh, yes, and also small people. No, what's the word? Children. That's right. Yeah. And so he still can't quite come up with a word sometimes.
He's still not quite human, is he?
Yes.
He likes to. I think he likes to think he is because of he's learned. He is artificial intelligence, isn't he? But a little bit more so.
Yes, very much. So.
But James Spader, jaw-dropping performance. Yeah. Very, very, very effective.
But it very much fleshed out all of the current Avengers characters as well. I felt that everybody had some good screen time. There's one character in particular you learn had a backstory that only one of the other team members was aware of. Yeah. And that made for an interesting plot device as well. And
obviously something that's not from the comics, as you've informed me. No. Obviously, as a fan of the comic book world, did you think that worked in the movie?
I think it worked very well because what it did, it very much put a target on one character's back. Yeah. That as soon as I saw that happen, I thought, oh no. And the way that played out, I thought was very cleverly done. Again, we're kind of tiptoeing around things here in order to avoid spoilers, because we want people to go out and see this for themselves and enjoy it and learn about it without it being ruined by two idiots like us.
Yeah. But there is very much throughout the film, as in all of the Marvel Universe films, it is a good versus evil story, and you have got a sense of dread throughout. But in this particular picture, there are, there's a few more heightened senses of dread because you've got these characters have got their own little arcs that are going off elsewhere, and in certain films that can be the downfall of them, to have too many character arcs to throw too many characters in the pot at once. But I think this is one of the first times again that I've seen a film that it hasn't suffered from it at all. No. It really, really hasn't. No. I mean, the Avengers, the original Avengers Assemble, obviously being an origin story, if you like, of all the characters. You said at the top of this, they get to hit the ground running now. So that's all done. So then we can explore these character arcs, and as I say, worked really, really well.
Yeah,
didn't take away from. It wasn't detrimental to any of the other story going on around it, which is a triumph, I think. And Joss Whedon should be massively back-patting.
But as for the action as well, the very fact that Ultron is this single character, but he's created thousands of versions of himself, sort of robotic versions. So
which are kind of spun off from the Iron Legion, aren't they?
Yes.
They are the Iron Legion,
yes.
aren't they? He's just overtaken.
They are his Iron Legion.
They're his Iron Legion. Yeah.
So they are all attacking at the end in order to stop the Avengers preventing what is Ultron's master plan. And the action in that, just the fighting, is absolutely incredible. I mean, there's a scene in the church, and again, it's sort of very much there to showcase the whole team fighting together. But the camera is moving round all these people, taking on these literally dozens and dozens and dozens of these Ultron characters, and beating them down. It was absolutely incredible, and just little bits where you kind of go, yes, like for example, there's a speech that Hawkeye gives where he dives through a window with Scarlet Witch at the end, and gives her this little speech, because I think she says, this is all my fault. And,
she does,
and he says, it's your fault, it's my fault, it's everyone's fault, it doesn't matter. We've now got to stop this. He said, it's a crazy world. We've been attacked by hundreds of robots, and all I've got is a bow and arrow.
None of this makes sense.
None of this makes sense. And then he says, however, you can choose to stay here, and that's fine, and I will tell your brother where you are, and he can come and get you. Or you can come outside and fight with us, and if you do, you're an Avenger.
If you walk through that door, you're an Avenger.
And then he goes out and carries on fighting, and all of a sudden all these Ultrons came, and then it's the Scarlet Witch entrance, which is and it's a real like, oh, come on.
Yeah, she
brilliant
does, I mean, for want of a better word, she does really kick ass.
She does.
She's a good character. It's actually got me looking forward to seeing more of her in the universe that they're creating. Hawkeye as well. Nice to see a lot more Hawkeye.
Yes.
In this one.
Yes, and I'm a big Hawkeye fan, as I've always said.
Obviously, you are Hawkeye Graham.
Yes, indeed.
But really, really good to see him get a lot more screen time than he did in the first one, and a great reference, which again, not going to spoil, but a great reference to his kind of lack of screen time in the first one.
Yes, and he's being taken over in the first one. Yes,
and very much showing that he is the most human of all the Avengers, if you like.
Yes.
I mean, obviously Black Widow, a human character, Stark, a human character, but even at one stage there's an incidental character that is in the picture that refers to Captain America and Stark as gods.
Yes. And
I think it really hits home how human Clint Barton and Natasha Romanoff are in this particular film, because they bleed, they get hurt.
This is it. Well, there's a great line when that person says these people are gods, and Clint Barton says, are you saying they don't need me? And the person says, well, no, I'm saying that they do, and that's what frightens me. And
that's great,
and it's a wonderful moment. It's a great line.
That's kind of, it's just proof that humanity is great.
Absolutely.
Proof that no matter if you've got this gamma radiated Hulk and the Norse god Thor coming down with his hammer and lightning, humans really are the ones with the heart and the ones with the soul.
But then that's the story of any superhero. It's about a hero isn't somebody who does something because they have powers. It is somebody who does something because they believe in what they're doing, and they will fight to the bitter end in order to do the right thing.
Indeed. Now, noticeable by her absence was Pepper.
Yes, I'd imagine, again, that's probably due to availability, because they did make reference to both Jane from the Thor films and Pepper from the Iron Man films, and I'd imagine...
To which there's a brilliant little moment of almost kind of girlfriend rivalry.
That's right.
My girlfriend's better than yours,
yes,
sort of thing.
A great bit of bantering between...
Classic Avengers bants.
Yes, between Stark and Thor. Yeah. But I can only imagine that that's the fact that Natalie Portman and Gwyneth Paltrow were busy with other projects, but,
It doesn't really affect... it doesn't really affect the film.
No.
It doesn't... I mean, if anything, maybe putting those back in would have kind of messed a little bit with the equilibrium of the film.
But I would say that they pulled in more than enough people from the other films.
Yes.
That it really did feel like
there was enough fan service.
I mean, of course, Skellen Skarsgård from the Thor films was in there as well, and there was so.
I really thought you were going to say Skeletor for some reason. Avengers.
That would have been great.
That would have been great. That's a crossover. There's a crossover we could mention in the next couple of podcasts.
One thing that I wanted to say that again is a bit of a spoiler, but we had a change of personnel. Some of the Avengers stepped away, and I won't say who they're being replaced by, but wasn't expecting some of the core members to step down for various reasons.
I mean, that could just be kind of a little bit of a red herring, a little bit of a fake out, but I mean, it does seem very much like they are teeing up for, I think, what we're going to have to refer to as the new Avengers.
Yeah, I mean, it happens a lot in the comics. The Avengers, in terms of membership, has been very much a revolving door. Obviously, you had the core team when the Avengers started, way back, and the Hulk left very quickly. Captain America came in. But then suddenly in issue 16, as early as that, a couple of people stepped down and 3 new people came in.
Indeed, yeah.
It's funny enough, the 3 people that came in were Hawkeye, the Scarlet Witch, and Quicksilver. Another great fanboy moment, and the film was full of them. And what I'm loving about all these great comic book adaptations, be it Daredevil on telly, be it Avengers on the big screen, be it the Superman stuff, is they chuck in moments that for the fanboys you can look at it and go, oh yeah. And towards the end of the film, you've got the Scarlet Witch has a little bit of a scene with Ultron.
Yes.
And who is she rescued by? Who swoops in and grabs her?
Oh, it's the Vision.
The Vision.
The Vision, yes.
Now, do you know about the Vision and Scarlet Witch in the comics?
I don't know.
They were married.
Oh, well, there we go. So that's so that's a massive fan service.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So therefore, to see her sweeping in, and he carried away, and he looks at her, and she looks at him, and that's a lovely little nod to the comics because they were a couple. They even had twins, which span off to be a great big thing that I won't go into now. But
that's for another podcast.
Absolutely.
I think going just briefly back to the the inclusion of new Avengers, if we like. I think that's only proving that now these films have hit the momentum they have hit. That they feel much more confident in themselves, and they can put these new characters in. They can see they've got, for want of better words, a vision that is further than these films, further than they probably even thought that it would reach.
Absolutely, but it just goes to show that there is such a rich variety of characters there. But the people that they brought in are all people who in the comics have been Avengers.
Yeah.
And so clearly they're showing that, yes, we started off with the big guns, but we've shown you enough of these other characters that you can relate to them, you understand their origins, you understand their motivations, and therefore we can start to bring them in. And it can be a bit, as you say, we've got an awful lot of stories still to be told. We've got more Cap films, Civil War's going to be huge, we've obviously got Thor, we've got Avengers Infinity War 1 and 2.
Of which all these characters have, quite integral parts.
Precisely.
And they're not going anywhere.
No, quite. But then, to know that you can bring in these other characters. And, I mean, if there's one thing that I would say I'm not disappointed about, but one thing I'm kind of thinking, oh god, is will it eventually stop? Because
I think all good things do come to an end, as they say, don't they?
But you don't want them to, when.
And I was very much like that when we were sitting in that cinema a couple of hours back. I did not want that to finish, because it was just so much glorious, rollicking fun.
Yeah,
it really was.
And to think that on the slate they've got one more Cap, one more Thor, 2 more Avengers, and then you kind of think, do you know what? I wish this could go on forever because it's so good. The characters are so compelling. The actors are giving such great performances. It's brilliantly written, let's say with humour and action across the board. You don't ever want it to go away. And you kind of think that, is it a case of eventually the bubble will burst and, this whole thing. I mean, for God's sake, even Sky Movies has a channel that's just called Sky Superheroes.
And rightly so.
That shows all the superhero films. And I think
we should scrap all the terrestrial channels and just have those channels.
But turn the clock back 10, 15 years, and the idea of it being so huge. We're always saying that this is a great time to be into this sort of thing, and it's definitely, the geek has inherited the earth.
Glorious time to be a nerd.
Absolutely. But you know, we're just getting so much, and suddenly all this has become the mainstream. You know, you look at the films that are now being put out there as the big blockbusters now. It is Avengers, it's Jurassic World, it's Mad Max. You know, I mean, we saw today the trailer for Tomorrowland, and it's all sort of very nerdy stuff. You know, suddenly all this geekdom has become the mainstream. We are no longer this, this sort of funny little section of fans who gets, you know, shunted away.
Yeah, there are certain times as well in instances like that you kind of, you don't want other people to come and get involved because you're like, this is my thing. But I think for me, with these kind of movies, I think the more people who get involved, the better.
Well, this is it.
Because, you know, as you say, all the punters who were there today at the IMAX, they were there because they love films, and they were there because they love the Avengers.
Absolutely.
And they were there because they love Iron Man and Captain America.
Yep.
And you can feel that in the room, apart from the guy who was one row back who was asleep.
Yes, you were saying he was snoring.
He was snoring.
Unbelievable.
And I can't believe he was snoring, because there was some real kick-ass action going on the screen. For you, did you have a highlight and a low light?
No.
No? There's nothing you can pick out that you didn't like?
Honestly, genuinely, you know me, I'm quite a cynical git, and I will always say, do you know, the one thing that I didn't like was such and such. There is nothing about this film that I did not love. There is nothing about this film that made me go, oh, do you know, disappointed with that. But again, there is no one thing. I mean, if I cast my mind back, I would suddenly say, oh, well, there's that. Oh, but there's also that, and there's that. I mean, there was 50 great things that I loved in that film.
I mean, there was only one thing that stood out for me that was a little bit of a niggle for me. But I'm pretty sure that about 3/4 of the way through the movie, I kind of had solved that niggle in my own head. Mm-hmm. It's the way Ultron's mouth moved.
Oh, okay.
I couldn't understand him being a robot, but being able to form words with his mouth. But then, if you look closely, you can see that his mouth is made up of segments that kind of move up and down, so therefore it's a faux mouth or lip movement. So, you know, I mean, I think that has to do with the fact that we did see it in 3D, and sometimes my eyes struggle a little bit in 3D, but I will say this is the first film I've seen in 3D that I've really enjoyed. I thought the 3D worked excellently with it, and if you do get a chance to see it in 3D, do see it in 3D, but because also, it does enhance the film.
I think 3D is different gravy at the IMAX as well. I think it looks so much better, it's so much clearer. Plus, the screen being so big, it fills up your entire vision. Whereas what you tend to find is in a normal cinema, yes, you're seeing something in 3D, but you're seeing the rest of the cinema around it, and therefore you're not as immersed in it as you are the IMAX. You know?
Indeed. I think, you know, as we said very early on, you know, my smile as we came out of those doors at the end of it said it all. But I think throughout this short review that we've done today, you can always tell when I'm very, very hyped and very passionate about something, because I find better words to use than swear words. So basically, you know, because I've not sworn throughout this entire review, I know I loved it. It was glorious.
It was. I mean, one thing we were talking about when we came out of the cinema was you were saying how much you loved the film. And I was saying the funny thing is that, to me, out of the two of us, you've always been a very cynical one. And yet it's funny, because when we talk about stuff, it tends to be me who picks holes in things and says all the things that I don't like. But you're definitely sort of the more jaded of the two of us. And yet, funny enough, recently, you just seem to have come out of that. With the Star Wars trailer, with this film, I'm seeing you much more, and it's great to see. Seeing you almost, you know, not trying to play it too cool. You're sort of giving in to your inner geek and saying, do you know what? I don't fucking care. I love this. Whereas before, you've always sort of tried to play it a little bit cool and say,
I've always stood off to the side with my sunglasses.
Absolutely.
Let's put it that way. But now the sunglasses are off, and I mean, they keep making these movies as good as they are.
Yeah. Then
I'll keep loving them as much as I do. Let's put it that way. Do you think you had one standout moment for you that just really blew your socks off? Yeah, it is a bit like that, isn't it? Too many, isn't there?
Honestly, as I'm thinking, shall I say that? Oh no, shall I say that? Shall I say that? And all of a sudden 5 or 6 things have already gone. I mean, there was one bit in the film that I thought was very cleverly done and was teed up very well. I mean, it's by no means my favourite part of the film, but something happened in the cinema that I don't think I've ever heard in a film before. The audience gasped.
There was a gasp moment, wasn't there?
Yes,
it was about 3/4 of the way through the film.
Yes.
Yeah, with the reveal of something.
Something happened that was alluded to earlier, and the audience literally went, and then there was a great comedy moment spinning off that really got a bigger laugh, because I think people were so taken aback by what had happened. And that was a great moment. But as I say, the film is so full of them. Because the thing is, you say, is it a great bit of comedy? Is it a great bit of action? And there's so much in it. I mean, that film is what, 2 hours, 20 minutes, 25?
Near about, yeah.
I would say it felt like I was sat in that cinema for about 45 minutes. It flew by. It was so good. I'm now thinking about when can I go back to see it. I'm also thinking about I can't wait to get this on Blu-ray so I can just watch it. And also I can't wait to get on Blu-ray so I can get my kids to watch it.
Yeah.
Because the trouble is they're both very young. I mean, the films are 12A, but at 5 and 3 they're too young to take to a cinema to see that.
Yeah.
Mainly because I think the sound and the size of the screen
might be a lot for a small child to
overwhelm them. Whereas I think at home on the little 3D telly they'll be fine with it. And I can't wait to put it in front of them because I know that they will love it as well. It's just as close to a perfect superhero film as you could get. I mean, one little thing that I thought was fantastic.
That's a huge recommendation. Yeah. That's a good recommendation.
And yeah, one thing that as I was watching it, I was just blown away by how good what I was watching was when we got the origin story of Quicksilver and the Scarlet Witch.
Yeah.
And they were talking to Ultron about it.
Yeah.
And there were some points where they were talking and the camera was on them. There was some time when they were talking, the camera was on Ultron. And what you've got is effectively a CGI'd robot just listening to someone.
Yeah.
But the little nuances of the face, and the face was so human, the way he sort of tilted his head or moved his eyes,
the irises,
and actually reacted to what they were saying. And you've literally got a 10-second bit where you're doing nothing but looking at a CGI'd robot listening to someone, and yet it was compelling viewing. And that alone made me think, my God, they've got something here. This is so beautifully done.
I think for me it has now overtaken Captain America Winter Soldier as being my favourite of the Marvel movies now. Right. I think it is a triumphant bit of filmmaking. It's absolutely electric, isn't it? It's alive. The whole film is alive. You feel like you're part of it.
Yeah.
It was just
across the board.
Just a brilliant film. As you said, I don't think I'd be able to pick out one single moment out of that film that was my favourite, but I will say this. The camaraderie between the team now is of such a high quality and so well performed amongst all involved. You can just see how much of a great time they are having with us.
Oh yeah, and of course that was very much reflected in the fact that in their
bollock dropping moment,
in their press junket, Chris Evans and Jeremy Renner did drop a bit of a bad one by referring to the Black Widow's character as a slut, a whore, and having a false leg.
Having a false leg, yeah. But I mean, as you pointed out earlier, Jeremy Renner's apology to the press and the world, if you like. I mean, yeah, I can understand why, maybe they shouldn't have said it, but I mean, please, just recant to the people at home that...
As I said, to me, you can understand feminists complaining about that.
Yeah.
Because finally there's a strong female character, and for two actors who play the male characters to refer to as a slut and a whore, but they were doing it in fun, they were doing it in jest.
Yeah.
And with the greatest
respect,
and
I think they wouldn't have done it if they didn't know Scarlett Johansson would have been fine with it, because they're all colleagues as well, aren't they?
Yes. But yeah, Jeremy Renner's apology that he issued, both of them issued an apology, and Jeremy Renner's stood out in particular because he did say, I'm very sorry for saying this about an obviously fictional character.
Brilliant.
As if to go, come on guys, let's get a bit of perspective here.
Let's get a bit of perspective indeed. Of course, as well, not the only Avenger who's had a bit of news problems, if you like.
A bit of hoo-ha at interviews.
Yeah. Robert Downey Jr. being interviewed by, I'm probably going to pronounce this gentleman's name incorrectly, Kristen Guru Murphy.
That's the one.
Who, most of the listeners will know. You will have seen him on Channel 4 News or other such programmes. Getting a little bit personal at a press interview regarding his past political views and his past problems with drugs.
Yes.
Now, I think that was a really, really low blow.
Yeah, well,
a massively low blow, purely for the fact that of all the actors, that have been across the years who have had these problems with drink or with drugs, some we've unfortunately lost, people like River Phoenix, some have carried on. But I think he's just the ultimate in comeback story, isn't he?
I thought it was a very naive move.
Yeah.
By Krishnan Guru Murthy, because he obviously had a set of questions that he wanted to ask, and you're interviewing somebody about a film. They're there to promote a film, And to start talking about a change in political views, you know, due to being released from prison or spending time in prison. But when your interviewee clearly shows that they're pissed off at this line of questioning and actually says, are we not supposed to be promoting a film here? Yeah. To then carry on, not be able to say, okay, well, maybe I should move away from that, to carry on and then start talking about his drugs past, you can understand, you know. And I thought it was great when Downey Jr. sort of got up and said, sorry, this was getting a bit Diane Sawyer-y and you're acting like a jerk or something like that. And
well, he handled it like an absolute pro, didn't he? He could have very easily, you know, just told him where to go and got angry and didn't. He just stood up and walked out. And utmost respect to Robert Downey Jr. I mean, I've always really, you know, enjoyed everything he's been in anyway, and quite like him as a person. Yeah. So, you know, for him to do that, he's not let me down. No. I doubt he's let any of his fans down.
I just think the thing about, I mean, I've always found Channel 4 News to be a bit pretentious anyway.
Yeah, it's a little bit over its own bottom, isn't it?
And clearly they thought, you know, everybody's going to be talking about the Avengers and rah, 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 isn't it great? So let's try and get a bit down and dirty with one of the actors. And it's like, you screwed yourself then. You know, the only headline you've got is how much of a Burke you've made yourself look.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, newscasting very much trapped in the 80s, unfortunately. Always looking for the dark perspective on things, and fortunately this time being told, no. Yeah. Get your coat, get out.
Quite. Okay, well, I think we covered it all. Have you got anything else you need to say?
I think I've covered it all indeed, sir. Yes,
I think we have. So, we'll just end up with saying, marks out of 10. What would you give that?
Well, as we've spoken previously, I don't think it's ever fair to give a film 10 out of 10 because I don't think there are any 10 out of 10 films apart from Texas Chainsaw Massacre. But I tell you what, I'd be close to it. I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10 because I just thought it was just such a massively enjoyable film. First time since we've been to the cinema together since Spider-Man 2 that I've wanted to walk straight out and go straight back in
again. Absolutely.
And I would have happily sat there and done that today had we have had more time. But yeah, guys, go and see it. It's a 9 out of 10.
Yeah. I mean, I've said to you that I don't give half marks. I tell you what, I would be sorely tempted to give that a 9.5 out of 10 because there's so many films that I've thought are 9 out of 10 films that Avengers Age of Ultron just absolutely pisses on. But yeah, in my normal thing, I would have to say 9 out of 10. But again, I also think it's hard to give something 10 out of 10 after one viewing. You know, some sort of thing that you would need to see again. And you know,
but once we have given it another viewing, we'll give it 10 out of 10. I mean, but interesting to know that you were faltering on your scoring system there.
I know. Indeed.
So that's proof indeed that it is a great
It is a fantastic film. I mean, it is far better than I thought it would be. It was better than I dared hoped it would be. It was just a fantastic film. Characterisation, the performances, the script, the effects across the board. As you say, you know, the biggest compliment I think we can pay is that both of us would have immediately put we didn't have to come and record this bollocks.
Yeah, indeed. Indeed.
Then we'd have gone straight back in and watched the thing again.
Indeed.
It really was that good.
If you love superhero movies and you love to smile for a good solid 2 hours, then, you know, don't miss out. It's for me the film of the year so far. It's
absolutely.
great.
Absolutely. Without a shadow of a doubt. So, that's our review of Avengers Age of Ultron. We hope you enjoyed that, but as we say, do go and see it yourselves. It's a fantastic film and well worth repeated viewings.
Very, very much.
Well, that's all for this episode of Geek-Minded Fools. So for myself, Graham.
And myself, Scott.
Thanks very much for listening, and we'll see you next time.